Hello, I'm Robert Moynihan, editor of Inside the Vatican magazine, speaking to you from Rome on Saturday night, just 4 days before the start of Conclave in Rome to elect a new. All these days, there's been rumors and chit chat here and journalists speaking, and I didn't really have anything to report. But this evening, there are reports that a kind of disinformation campaign has entered into the conclave, as if outside forces are trying to influence the cardinals. And I received confirmation tonight that this has had its effect. The Italians have not reached a unified position on the candidate they want to have. They originally were going to support the Cardinal Secretary of State, Pietro Parolin, whom I know well. He's a diplomat. He worked on the nuclear arms reduction talks in Vienna as a Vatican delegate. He was a career Vatican diplomat and was regarded as someone who's been very steady. He's been attacked and disliked for the fact that it was his destiny to oversee the creation of an agreement with the government of China and the church in China. But this was something that was desired already even by John Paul II and by Pope Benedict. They wished to regularize and give legal protection to the church in China. Everyone knows it's extremely difficult to work with a communist government and to have them give an open space for religious freedom because they believe religion should be eventually stamped out. But the Vatican had made an agreement in 2018 under the Secretary of State Parolin, and it was signed. We don't know the contents, and this has led to many people criticizing Parolin. But Pope Francis asked him to do it, and the Vatican believes that it gives a certain protection to the church in China. But what happened yesterday was that a news report was spread that Cardinal Parolin had experienced a health emergency in front of all the other cardinals and that he had received medical assistance. And I even said on a podcast yesterday, Cardinal Parolin has reportedly fainted in front of the other cardinals. Then, yesterday evening in the press office, it was reported that when asked to confirm or deny this report, the press director, Matteo Bruni, said it was false. It never happened. And I started to feel that I had been made a fool of because I was simply reporting unthinkingly things that I couldn't believe hadn't happened. If someone said a man had fainted, I thought it must have happened. So there's some type of disinformation that has entered this conclave and has now left the impression that Cardinal Parolin is unhealthy, weak in some way. And I was, by chance, about half an hour ago, on the street, I spoke with somebody of a very authoritative nature who told me this has affected the conclave and that the cardinals are not united right now, especially the Italians. They don't know if they should support Parolin or another cardinal named Matteo Zuppi, who actually is a parish priest years ago in Trastevere, and I knew him in those years in the 1990s. He's now the Archbishop of Bologna. He was the man Pope Francis chose to be his emissary to try to make peace between the governments of Russia, the United States, and Ukraine. He traveled to Moscow, he traveled to Kiev, he traveled to Washington. Now, there are a lot of people that say Zuppi is very liberal. But Supi also has a good heart. And I would think that there's a special grace that is given to any man who would gather the votes of his fellow cardinals and who would become the Pope. And he would be a different man after his election than he was before. God will not allow someone to come and lead the church who will lead us completely into the abyss. But secular and outside the church forces may try to influence the conclave, and this has been evidence of that. And I'm very disappointed in myself. So I now want to say that the conclave, under these pressures, should focus on unity, on the freedom of the church, on finding a strong leader with deep faith who can lead the church in the midst of a world which wants to diminish the authority of the church and end the possibility of the church having an authoritative moral voice in a society that wishes to have all sorts of artificial intelligence and new monetary systems and perhaps new systems of totalitarianism that may seem on the surface to be not so dangerous, but which were referred to by Pope Benedict XVI, who I knew when he said, great danger facing humanity is the totalitarianism of relativism. Here we are, just a few days before the papal conclave, beautiful May night in Rome. There'll be a rosary now in just a few minutes in St. Peter's Square. I'll try to go over and join the crowd of people praying for the protection of the Virgin, for our church, and for the protection from St. John Paul II, from Pope Benedict XVI, and from Pope Francis, that the church may be free and spread the gospel to the ends of the earth. Thank you for listening.